Hey guys, welcome back to Past Restored. In this episode, we'll start off showing you guys how we clean and prep parts before we send them off for electroplating. In order to make sure we don't lose anything when we send stuff off, we have to wire everything together very carefully, and these are the tools we use to do that. So the real difficulty with sending stuff off for electroplating is that you really want to be sure that you don't lose anything, and the only way to do that is to very carefully wire and label all parts that go off, and keeping everything on individual strands. And you may ask what wire we're using.
Special Aviation 0.2 millimeter.
It has the ability to flex without breaking. Alright, let me show you guys how I wire something up. What you got?
Got some wired up stuff ready for electro. Why do you wire it? Keep it all together so it doesn't get lost. Clever. Smart.
No, that's smart. Once everything comes back from the electroplating, we have the long task of sorting and cutting loose all the individual pieces and parts. If we look over here, again some more sort of sorting of the front parts, the interior parts and the boot parts. So yeah, as we get each new part in, we'll put those into the different boxes and then slowly start putting everything back together. We then like to try and further separate all the parts into smaller sub-assemblies, and then it's really easy for us, once we get all the parts, to pick up that box and assemble the individual parts that we've put up on the shelf. The first box off the shelves this episode is the wiper motor. Graham's going to be putting back all the individual restored parts, and hopefully at the end of it we have a working unit.
Pretending to know what I'm doing. So I've got a very good memory, and so most of the time I just remember in my mind how things went together. The other 50% of the time I never remember how things go together. So I document everything with photographs on my phone, and then what I do is I look at those photos and reassemble.
Graham's finished the wiper motor now.
Finish.
And what do you think?
Can I go?
Yeah, we can go when you're ready.
Didn't doubt myself for a second. That's great news.
It was then time to move on to the carbs. After we aquablasted all the parts, there were a few minor repairs. We then sent off all the mild steel parts for electroplating, and we coated all the aluminium in anti-corrosion formula. Arthur then took all the individual pieces and separated them before we started the assembly.
First, good evening. Well, you've caught me somewhat mid-process, but yes, separate the carbs into their two packages, because they are essentially two separate carbs, and then start pairing them together.
We got pretty far with the carbs, but then there was a delivery. Then 10 items that are in these packages.
Brass washers for the exhaust manifold. New set of tail lights. Arthur's panels, for floor pans for another Mini. New locks for the doors. Let's just open it up.
I will now allow you to open these boxes. So as I'm sure you've all figured out, we decided to take off the front end. We're gonna go through the process and show you how to get it off nice and gently. With these with all cars, and these old cars specifically, they were put together like primarily with spot welds, which basically hold all of the panels together in the car. So we start off by popping all of the little spot welds that we find. Sometimes it's useful to actually just use a flap sand or a piece of sanding paper just to grind over where the spot welds are, because the spot welds, the paint will stay in them, and then you know that's exactly where they are. We'll start off with a little center drill and probably go through both pieces of steel, trying not to, just to make sure that we keep the drill on the center. Then we move over to 6mm. See that I've ground the edge at a bit of a shallower pitch just to try and prevent us going through to that second panel. And then if we do run into any trouble or into any bigger spot welds, then we've also just ground up a 10mm just to try and get through possibly 2 different welds at once. So onto the time lapse.
So I might have a girlfriend across the world.
That's going on our next edit.
As long as she knows it's her.
All on camera. All going on the edit.